everyone, and welcome back to Keeping Up with Ken. Today I'm so excited to bring you an interview I did with my friend Brian Wee. He is a sophomore at Harvard this year, amazing kid, and he's going to tell you all about the stuff that he does within the Premedical Society and all of his other clubs at Harvard, along with some of the stuff that he did in high school prior to going to Harvard. So let's get right into it.
Hello, Brian. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Hello, yeah, I'm Brian Wee. I am a rising sophomore at Harvard College, planning on concentrating in chemical and physical biology and possibly either government or computer science.
Awesome. Awesome. So the first question that I have for you is, what were your main clubs that you were involved in high school?
Yeah, so I think coming into high school, I felt like ultimately I really wanted to make sure that all the time that I had during the course of my experience was really spent doing things that I think would fill my time really meaningfully and give me a lot more, I guess, perspective into what I really wanted to do in the future. I think in terms of like two, I guess, themes that really dominated the clubs that I did, they would have to be science and probably service. Got involved quite early with the Science Bowl, Science Olympiad, fell in love with them. Also worked in the National Honor Society, the Tri-M Music Honor Society, the Math Honor Society, and then founded, I guess, our school's chapter of the Science National Honor Society.
All the honor societies in science, yes, which I
Yeah.
think very, very much captures who you are as a person. So my second question that I had for you was, what was the research that you were involved in high school? So I know you did some research. You were involved, you did the science fair. So tell me a little bit about all the different things that you did.
So I guess I first started getting involved with research after my freshman summer. I had some family, my aunt and uncle, who live up near Boston in a suburb, and I was going to go over there for the summer to just visit them, but I ended up reaching out to a whole bunch of different professors at Harvard, and ended up actually having a somewhat close connection, or I guess not really close, but a connection that ended up like allowing us to, I guess, to be able to work with one another, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And every summer after that, I kept on going back and really loving the place. I worked like 40-hour weeks each of those summers, and the work that I did was primarily in terms of genetics, with looking at different variants and ways that we can, I guess, identify mutations that cause diseases like autism, schizophrenia, and one called ataxia telangiectasia, which is a mouthful for sure. Yeah.
Awesome. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have anything else you'd like to say on that, or?
I guess that covers what I did in high school. I also did a bit of work with algae and looking at solar panel construction as well.
Cool.
And currently I'm shifting more towards a epidemiology and genetics kind of perspective in terms of looking at COVID patterns and different, I guess, populations that are the most impacted and ways in which doctors can really make the most effective treatments for individuals who have certain conditions.
That's awesome. So I would say a good follow-up question to all those different things is, what is one long-term goal that you have for yourself?
It's a tricky question. I think for me, I ended up having, I guess, an early life experience that really shaped a lot of what I wanted to do with my time in the world, and who I really wanted to be. When I was in elementary school, 6 years old, I actually lost my mother to lung cancer, and the last note that she ended up leaving my father and I said, "Go, Brian, do the best you can."
Oh.
So I guess my whole life has kind of been me trying to fulfill that mission and working hard in pretty much every way that I think really inspires me and would hopefully allow me to really help as many people as possible. And I've had some pseudo-philosophical debates with friends about like the exact ways to do that, and I guess all the different careers, for instance, that you can pursue to really make a big difference in the world. And for me, I think really channeling all of my interest into research and medicine as the two biggest factors, I think, is where, for me, I feel like I can make the biggest difference. And that's my, I guess, overarching life mission or
I like
goal.
that. That's a really beautiful life philosophy, and I think like that it's so broad that you can really go where you're passionate about. And I think that you found your passion in medicine and learning about all those different things and being able to pursue that further. I know you really work hard to do that. And so I think it's so interesting, and especially we're going to get into that in your interview of all the different things that you've done and all the different things that you hope to do. So the next question I have for yourself kind of veers off from what we were just talking about, but it is, did you apply to Harvard early? I know this answer, but go ahead.
Yes, I guess I did end up applying to Harvard's restricted early action program and got in and ended up being the only school that I applied to, I suppose.
I love that. I love that. No, I remember, so I know Brian and previously, and I remember before he got into Harvard and everything, he'd tell people he was applying to clown college. And so that was like one of my favorite memories about you. And I think really Harvard is a good fit for you. But one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, why did you feel that Harvard was such a good fit?
Yeah, I think coming into high school, I think we all have different conceptions of what the different colleges offer and what really makes them special. I think what it came down to for me was really seeing everything that Harvard had to offer in terms of going there summer after summer and doing research there, and seeing like how perfectly, for me, it fits into my mission. Harvard itself, I think, is easily one of the best schools for medicine. I'd like to say it's the best, but I'm not the one in charge of, I guess, the metrics for that. It has an incredible medical school that has, I think it's like maybe 10 different hospitals nearby. And all of those different hospitals conduct their own research programs, have shadowing opportunities, a lot of incredible ways, and a lot of incredible professors and faculty who are there to really offer opportunities to grow in medicine. And I think when it comes to other factors, like all the people that really come there and the missions that they have, and I guess their goals for how they want to change the world too, that was a really big draw for me to come to Harvard overall.
Yeah, Harvard, it does, one of the things about top schools, and much like Stanford where I'm going, they provide students with access to so many different resources. And I think that's really what makes them so unique, is like a lot of schools have those resources, but they're a lot less accessible to the average student. And there it's just, there's so many, you can't even take advantage of all of them. And especially for medicine, Harvard just does such a good job of providing students with the different opportunities necessary to advance themselves in that career and get ready for medical school and stuff like that. And so the next question I have is exactly about that, is what clubs are you involved in at Harvard? I know you like to focus your clubs on pre-med and stuff like that. So elaborate on those.
I think so. My clubs are definitely tailored to, or I guess centered around the mission and I guess my overall life goals. So I'm part of the PREMED Society as the peer advising director, along with being, I guess, the founding director of a program called Diagnosis there. I'm also one of the programming directors for the Harvard College Undergraduate Research Association, involved in the Global Health Forum as an advocacy director, and do volunteering with the Harvard Square Homeless Shelter, the recent Immigrant Enrichment program, which is a program in which we tutor recent immigrants and refugees to the US, and do some other fun ones, including WERB, which is the radio station. I'd say one other big thing that is coming up for this semester that I've been working on throughout this whole summer is I'm also working to start a new conference called the National Pre-Health Conference. We have been planning it throughout the summer, I guess a group of us and I, and it's looking to be pretty big. We just finished, I guess, some applications for it and are building our board, but we currently have, I think, 11 different Harvard clubs or organizations that are partnered with us to make it a reality.
Awesome. So is it like a convention basically for people who are trying to enter medicine?
Yeah, kind of. We originally, I guess, when I was coming into it and when I ended up, I guess, thinking of the idea of the conference, it was when I think a lot of what was going on in America was really dividing and really, unfortunately, separating a lot of people from one another, along with a lot of health practitioners. Um, there is a lot that's been going on recently with the coronavirus pandemic, the Black Lives Matter protests, which have really shown how divided I think we are, and how fractured the health community in particular can be, especially given that I think the health community is hopefully there to really elevate people and connect them with one another. So with the purpose of this conference, it's really to bring in everybody from across the nation to, I guess, offer perspective really on a lot of the issues in health that are going to be necessary when it comes to, for instance, applying to medical school or veterinary school or dental school. But then also looking at how we can really build those deep conversations that can hopefully propel our generation forward and really promote the idea of progress in medicine too.
Yeah. And I've been reading this is a complete tangent here, some very interesting articles about racism in medicine and how it's not even it's just structural, how we identify different diseases and stuff in different people's bodies. It just is different. And it's not studied on in a variety of skin colors and places. It's just so interesting how there's just an absence of medicine, especially as a Black woman. I recognize that they could tell me that I'm low on vitamin D or something, but it's just because my melanin keeps track of it differently, And so there's all these different medical things that I could have or could run into and difficulties, and how Black women are more likely to die from childbirth and stuff like that in the industry, which I think is so important that you have groups of medical professionals who get together and they talk about these, because if there isn't communication within the industry and within the profession, then these issues will continue to perpetuate. And so it's very important. I'm glad that you're working on that. And would you mind elaborating a little bit on Diagnosis, the program that you're starting?
Absolutely. I guess quickly, in terms of what you were saying before, I think that really resonates with a lot of the mission that we have with NPC. We've been really fortunate. I wanted to make sure that from the very beginning, we partnered with organizations and really made sure our message was, I guess, really well crafted and inclusive from the beginning. And we've been able to partner with a huge amount of organizations like the Harvard Black Health Advocates and the Black Premedical Society, along with a huge amount of other, I guess, health organizations to really hopefully promote a lot of those conversations that need to be had. I guess for Diagnosis, so Diagnosis was a little idea that I guess came from some things that I did previously in high school and middle school. I remember in high school, for instance, and back before that in middle school too, I used to make little, I guess, kind of escape rooms or puzzle series for my friends. Just a little nice thing to bring us all together, to hopefully, I guess, serve as a puzzle for me in making it, but also for them to help engage with a lot of, I guess, the things that might be going on and build some skills too. When I came into Harvard, I noticed that oftentimes within the pre-med community, it can be easy to sometimes, I guess, self-isolate, or to think that a lot of the work that you end up doing might, for instance, be just like your own struggle. And there's a lot of support out there, but I wanted to make sure that whatever I ended up doing in Harvard was something that really built community within the pre-med community as well. So Diagnosis ended up being basically a case studies competition where a team of us ended up writing a series of different, I guess, cases, all from scratch, which were essentially just, I guess, case studies of people who had these certain conditions. We gave them information about, I guess, like symptoms that they might have had, and then, I guess, tests that they could run during the competition. Brought in actual physicians to consult on all the accuracy and validity of it, And then it was in March, ended up holding the competition with all of the different cases and bringing in those doctors to serve as judges as well and panelists. Ended up being a lot of fun. There were a lot of layers to it in terms of sending out like preliminary information that was a little like blurred beforehand about each of the patients, having the tests during the competition along with timed updates that went out every like 30 minutes or so. And it was a huge amount of fun to organize. We'll see about how we'll end up adapting it for this next year, especially considering that everything is going to be virtual. A lot of the reason why, like, I guess NPC kind of was also born as us thinking about how, like, really adapting to and hopefully taking advantage of a lot of the capabilities or, I guess, facets of virtual communication really has, in terms of really connecting far more than just being an event on Harvard's campus could.
Yeah, that's really cool. So would you say diagnosis is kind of like a hackathon for med people?
Exactly. I think
That's really
that's
cool.
pretty quite close. And we ended up getting like Lisa Sanders, who is a quite famous physician who has her own like Netflix TV show, for instance, to endorse it, which was really cool.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Yeah. So I'm so glad to see you getting so integrated with all these different societies, especially ones that fit into your passion areas so early on. Like, I'm so impressed by that. You joined them all in your freshman year. You're taking on leadership positions. I'm always just impressed by you, Brian. So my next question that I have for you is kind of about the virtual format. So how has this new academic year, how most of campus will not be on campus, affected your plans, whether the classes you're taking or the clubs that you plan to engage with? How have your plans shifted because of this?
I'd say it's really shifted a lot, but not too much in some areas. I guess I'll elaborate in terms of when everybody, I guess, was leaving campus back in the spring. It was definitely a huge shock. And I think moving to an online format really came with a lot of hurdles and a lot of, I think, also different social problems that really require a lot of ingenuity and I think hard work. When it comes to this upcoming year, I'm definitely a little bit cautious in terms of seeing how everything will go, but I think fortunately, it looks like Harvard is still offering some good ways to make sure that people are staying connected, in terms of making sure that there are a lot of different social events, a lot of things and traditions that would have been in person are going online. For instance, I think Harvard has one of its biggest traditions in terms of Housing Day, which is where essentially at the end of freshman year, it was definitely, yeah. I guess Housing Day is where at the end of freshman year, each of the students ends up getting sorted into their house, one of 12 different houses on Harvard's campus. And it's a huge tradition. They end up usually like running up to your door in the morning of Housing Day, and like knocking on it and screaming whichever house you got. We didn't unfortunately have that because of COVID, but they ended up doing some great things in terms of organizing an all online one, which was still pretty good. And we'll have
not the same though.
Quite good, not the same. And they do, luckily, I think my house, Lowell House, is also having some great orientation programs.
Good.
Where they're trying to adapt and doing a lot of new things with that. I guess a lot of extracurriculars are going to be a lot different this upcoming year. Volunteering is one area where it's going to be a lot trickier, I think, if that's something that you're really passionate about. And some other programs in terms of, for instance, conferences, like we had, for instance, with the Harvard College Undergraduate Research Association, where we organized 2 conferences for research throughout the year. Those ones are also going to look a lot different. But I'd say overall, it does look like Harvard professors, students are really trying to make the most of what's going on and really trying to adapt. I'm definitely a bit optimistic about it, and we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I think it's
It's good to be optimistic, and I like that you have that outlook. I'm very pessimistic about this upcoming year, especially on Stanford's side. I think a lot of other colleges, Harvard included, have been way better at communicating with their students than Stanford has been. And so hopefully everything goes well, and the switch to the online format, as you were saying about your conference, really opens it up to even more people participating in it. And so I think that even though there's a lot of things that you lose, you also gain some more people having access to those programs. And so clubs this year, they won't be the same, but maybe more people can join them. And so, there's a lot of pros and cons between them. Okay, so some final questions for you, Brian. What are some pieces of advice that you have for either incoming freshmen at Harvard or high school students right now?
I'd say for high school students right now, there's a lot of uncertainty that's going on in terms of really what to expect. I would really encourage you to definitely take this time right now to conduct some little, mini kind of debates within your head about what really matters to you and your place in all of this and the world that we have. I think there can sometimes be a lot of pressure on high school students to really find whatever goal or mission they have. And sometimes the pressure can come from different sources, for instance. For some people, it might be their parents. I was really glad to, not really have too much on that front. It might be your friends or what you see from others. But I think when it comes to, looking to apply to college, for instance, what is really, really valued in terms of what colleges are looking for, and I think what is the most important for a lot of us right now, is making sure that all of your intentions right now are really true to whatever you hold to be the most important and whatever you really, feel like sparks an interest in you right now.
That is so absolutely true. And I try to emphasize that to kids all the time, and you put that beautifully. I swear, it doesn't matter what your passion is most of the time, as long as you truly love what you're doing and you can show that you've dedicated yourself to doing it. And I think you're a great example of somebody who found their passion and has dedicated a long time to doing it and being proficient at it and getting other people engaged and involved with it. And so that's a wonderful piece of advice. And kids, if you're watching this, please listen to him. He knows what he's talking about, and I completely agree with it as well. Do you have any last pieces of advice you'd want to give beyond that?
I guess for anybody right now who is pretty worried, for instance, about coming into college, if you're an incoming freshman on that front, I'd say definitely also take this time to really connect with every opportunity and every, social connection that you might be able to make. There are a lot of different, people who are there to support you, a lot of different events that are made so that you are able to really succeed when it comes to college. And one thing that I've seen is that sometimes at a place like Harvard, for instance, even, a lot of students might not necessarily access a lot of those opportunities. For instance, I think the Office of Career Service is an amazing place, and I would really highly encourage anybody who's coming into Harvard to really go there and attend their events. Not that they don't have, enough attendees already, but I'd say in general, there are so many ways that people around you are really there to support you and really eager to make sure that your voice is heard and that you're able to use this time effectively. And remember not to, internalize it or feel like it all has to, become a burden on you. And make sure that you're really still talking to people, that you're really, really taking advantage of everything that your high school, your family, your friends, your college has tailored and, made for you.
I would snap for you if I knew how to snap, because that is so true. And I think it applies beyond just your college settings, taking advantage of the opportunities and resources that are open to you. Just because you don't necessarily think you need it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it or take advantage of it or learn about it. The Career Center, I know plenty of kids notoriously don't take advantage of career centers at their colleges. And those are such useful pieces of just resources for students to find jobs, look into different industries that they can go into. And so that is a great piece of advice. All of your advice has been great, and it has been wonderful talking to you. Do you have any final remarks?
No. Thanks again for the interview. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Brian. You are a blessing. And again, thank you everyone for watching. This is Brian Wee. He is a sophomore at Harvard University. He's focusing on pre-med, and he's been a blessing to have right here as an interview. So thank you all again for watching, and thank you, Brian.